How do you change your life? How do you change your life for the better? For the most part of my life, specifically my 30s, late 20s, I would consider myself a really disciplined person. And, during that phase of my life, I was able to build a pretty successful business and became a millionaire during that time. And a lot of my life I adopted these isms, I would call it, that kind of helped me to always kind of stay locked in. And I'll share some of those with you in a moment. But at this phase of my life, at 41 years young, it's been different. Like I haven't been as locked in. I haven't been what I would consider as disciplined as a person. And the things that used to matter so strongly to me, they just stopped mattering. And a lot of what happened is life. Life happened. So during the last few years, I had a lot of life change, and one of those major changes being divorce. And I'm not going to go too much into it right now, but anyone who's ever experienced divorce, it takes a toll on you in unexpected ways that I couldn't even fathom or imagine, where the waking up on time and the discipline and the structure of things, and making money and ensuring that things continually move forward in all areas of life, from health to mind to everything. Not that those things don't matter, because they still hold a strong place in my life, but they didn't matter as much. Whereas what mattered most during that time was more of my internal world and what was going on in my mind, and the fact that my mind wasn't working as great, and the focus and the motivation wasn't there as much, and not wanting to do much. And the things that had strong importance, that was like a 10 out of 10, now was a 3 out of 10, where what was going on with my heart and my emotional world, and addressing things that needed awareness and needed healing and needed attention, like that took priority and precedence. And the result of all of that was, it was almost like this, what I thought in my mind was like this lessened version of myself, but not realizing that it really was imbalance in a lot of ways. Where I like to think about like being whole or alignment as being aligned with your head, your heart, and your feet. And what I mean by that is, your head is your thinking and where are you at, and your outlook and your perspective, and your direction on life, right? And your heart is what's going on in your internal world, like what matters to you most, like what do you treasure, what do you deem true, like your beliefs, this is your center, like this keeps you really grounded. And then your feet is direction, it's intention, it's taking the things that you envision in your mind and your heart, and then moving forward with that direction, with confidence, with zeal, and it's execution. And I found that you can kind of be imbalanced or be lopsided to a degree if your head is not aligned with your heart, and your heart isn't aligned with your feet, or vice versa. And a lot of times, just speaking from experience, you can be really good in one area. Like in my past was business, and being able to make money and drive revenue and all that good stuff, right? The external things. But what started to happen was I started compartmentalizing. And compartmentalizing meaning that things that I needed to address, I would just kind of put in a box and just kind of tuck it away, because that didn't matter more than succeeding, making money, being great. But what started to happen was I started to kind of hit this wall, and it was almost like God was trying to continually get my attention, and I just kept ignoring it, and then you do that until you can't. So anyhow, went through this process, and it was a process of acknowledgement. It was a process of assessing where I'm at in my life. It was a process of unlearning things that was not for my greater good. It was a process of healing. It was a process of just addressing, acknowledging, like going head on to the things. And when you start to become aware, then awareness is like the key to everything, because when you're aware, now you know. And that knowing leads to greater understanding, and that greater understanding leads to better clarity. And that clarity, you're able to actually make decisions from, and you can assess, and you kind of know why, or you can find reasons as to the things that may have transpired in your life. You can kind of understand what preceded and led to those points. So, going back to my original question is, how do you change your life? And today I'm in this phase where, I feel like I've addressed and acknowledged areas, and I've healed from the inside, and I've integrated, right? Because now there's this integration phase, because, a lot of times it is almost like a rebirth of self, and doing away with ways of being and behaviors and thought processes and the way you approach things, like doing away with things that no longer serve me, and recognizing things that are not for my greater good. And that is a process, and it's a component of time, fortunately and unfortunately, because sometimes, for those who are wired by, we got to get it done, we got to be progressive, we got to be efficient, you just want to know the formula as to what it is I got to do to get to the other side. And that formula, or that way of approaching life, doesn't exist when it comes to being. It doesn't exist when it comes to figuring out who you are. It doesn't exist when it comes to actually healing and acknowledging and addressing. Because when you have to be, it means you have to sit with self, and that takes time, and you have to acknowledge, and you have to address, and that takes time. There's no formulaic process to just rush your way through that process, because that's exactly what it is. It's a process. So how do you change your life? And now I find myself coming back to the things that actually did serve me in my past that will serve me now. Because you'll find that there's parts of yourself and your being, from whether it's your past, that did help you and can help you on this journey as to where you're going now. All things you don't have to do away with, because, a lot of times I thank my past self for the work and the effort and who I was, because it allows me to live life today. So some of those things are, I call it my isms or aphorisms or whatnot. One of them is, the way you start your day sets the context and the tone of your day. So what I mean by that is, how you start every single day, it sets the tone, right? If you get up and you're negative, or you get up and the first thing you do is reach for social media, or you get up and you check email, and you get up and you look at what a staff member said, you get up, or whatever you feed your brain, it's like you are giving governance of your schedule, your life, the attention, where your attention goes to whatever you put in front of you. So make sure that what you immerse yourself in, what you expose yourself to, what you engage in, is things that are of the highest vibration, that put you in a better positive state of mind, put you in a better heart space. And oftentimes it can be things simple as listening to something positive and uplifting or inspiring or motivating. It could be reading, whatever your faith is, and maybe a personal development book, and maybe, your Bible. But the way you start your day sets the tone of the day. And then that permeates into what's the first thing that you're ingesting, not just with your mind or your eyes, but also what are you feeding yourself? But if you're eating junk in the morning, well, you're setting the tone of that what you're doing, which is putting junk in your system early. So the context of your day tends to ride the momentum or whatever it is that you're actively doing. So eat something healthy, eat something that gives you energy, eat something that gives you zeal. And so the way you start the day sets the tone of the day. The second thing is, I always like to say, structure creates freedom. A lot of times when we think about living our best life, structure and schedule is like the least thing that we think about, because it's all about having fun and turn it up and being free. But freedom actually comes from structure. And when you think about the most successful people that like think about the most successful people, and that's based on your standards, but let's just look at what the world deems as successful. People that have high amounts of wealth, and they've achieved great things, beyond what most have achieved. You'll find like the underlying thing that most successful people have is they're very mindful of their time, and their time matters. Like, they look at time not just as this infinite resource, but almost as like finite and scarce, and making the most of your time. Because you've heard this before, everyone has the same 24 hours in a day, and it's based on what you do during that time that dictates and governs how your tomorrow and your future will become. So the structure creates the freedom, meaning plan your day out. Plan your day the night before. Think about intentionally how your next day is going to go, right? The day, every single day, the start of your day, make sure that there's structure in your day. What are you actually doing? What are you aiming to achieve? Put it in your calendar, write it out, set reminders for yourself. Don't just rely on your mind, because it's fallible. It will fail you, right? Make sure it's in your schedule, make sure it's in your journal, whatever it is that you do to track or helps you to stay on track in regard to any type of system. Aim to build structures in your life that are locked in, meaning no matter what happens, it's just like brushing your teeth. You're going to do it that day. It's no different than taking a shower, taking a bath. You're going to do that every single day. So when you think about building structures in your life, you really want to think about systems, or building systems. And systems are things that you can repeat over and over again. And that takes thinking. Because a lot of times what happens is you'll look at your life and you'll say, getting in shape is important to me, but I'll do that when things calm down. Or making more money, improving my lifestyle is very important to me, but right now things are just crazy. And these are the excuses, because that's what they are, or reasons that we tell ourselves why we cannot, when really we want to change our life. So how do you change your life? You get intentional about it, right? You change your life by assessing where you're at, current day, right now. And this assessment takes time, right? So where are you in your life? And be all the way honest, because if you can't be honest with yourself, then you ain't got nothing, right? So you have to be willing to be honest and be truthful with yourself and assess where you're at in your life. And in that assessment starts to give you feedback and answers. And now you recognize where I'm at, and maybe it's right here. And then you recognize where you would like to be, maybe it's right here. And all of that in between is the gap. And that's your work. So you write down where you're at, you write down where you would like to be, you think on for what reason am I not where I would like to be, and then you start the process of building out your life, building out your schedule, building out the things that you need to cultivate in order to get to your promised land. And what that looks like, again, is really taking an assessment and inventory of your life. And what you may recognize is that, just giving an example, okay, I may not be making enough money right now. Okay, well, what amount of money would you like to make? So then you write that number down. Okay, so where am I at right now, and where I want to be, that's the gap. So how do I make that up? And that's where a lot of people stop also. And it's like, okay, well, how do I make more money? So then you go down that process and you start asking more questions. And then you say, okay, what ways could I make more money? And the ways that I could make more money in this example, you start to research those areas. You start to see what resonates with you. And sometimes you may not even possess the capability at the time to actually make that money, because you may determine and realize that you lack certain skill sets, and you don't really have the skill set to be able to make that amount of money. So you know your work is gaining that skill set. So it may be you learning something different, or learning how to trade, or learning different ways to make money, and that's your work. And once you have identified those areas, now what you do is now you start building the structures and the systems that will allow you to get to your promised land faster. So what does that look like? So in this example of making money, maybe it's learning how to trade, because I'm just using this example. You've realized and you've seen that, hey, people trade and make money is something they can do on their own, and it's Forex. So now what you do is you go down the process and say, all right, how do I learn how to trade? Right? Who can teach me how to trade? Like, where are the experts in this space? You know, what are the fundamentals that I need to understand that I don't know now? And what system can I install for myself so that every single day I can commit to at least learning and allocating maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, even if you got 15 minutes, whatever you can commit to is what you commit to. And that is the muscle of commitment and showing up over and over and over again that builds you. It builds that muscle, it builds that strength, it builds that competency. And before you know it, you're going to become a great trader. Before you know it, you're eating right every single day because you wanted to lose weight and get the best shape of your life, and you're going to lose that weight. Before you know it, because you wanted to get jacked and lean and strong, and you're showing up to the gym every single day. And before, when you're showing up, you didn't know what you were doing. But as you keep showing up and you're building that muscle of consistency, you start to get stronger, you start researching more things, you start learning what is required to get stronger, and then you become better, you become more competent, you become more capable. And that's how you change your life. So it starts with awareness, right? It starts with awareness. Where are you today? Take that assessment of your life and then act accordingly. So you got this, my friends.